Hello and welcome to Market Madness, the podcast from GiveMeSport, where every day is like deadline day. I'm Olivia Buzaglo, and alongside me is GiveMeSport senior football correspondent Ben Jacobs. Ben, you okay?
Everything is good. I guess you're quite happy about last night, even though it was a slog.
I'm happy with the result. I'm not necessarily happy with Chelsea's performance, but it's 3 points, and that's all that matters at the end of the day.
Yeah, and
Is
I'm
what
really
I'm telling myself
excited,
anyway.
by the way, because Chelsea last night and loads of English sides in the top 8, but the real story was Bodø, wasn't it? And I know we're going to be speaking a bit more about that in just a second.
We are. It's very exciting. We are live, just to remind everyone, every Thursday, 11 o'clock throughout the transfer window. Where are they now? Just 11 days to go until deadline day is here. Today, like Ben says, we are going to be talking Bodø Glimt, but we're also going to turn our attention to Crystal Palace. It's Oliver Glasner's announcement that he's leaving the club, the start of a mass exodus from the FA Cup holders. Speaking of Palace, we'll hear from their former defender Mark Gay on his move to Manchester City. And of course, speaking of Manchester City, we're joined in a couple of minutes by the managing director of Bodø Glimt, who caused arguably one of the greatest Champions League upsets of all time just earlier this week. Well, more on that and the future of Pep Guardiola with BBC Sports' Shamoon Hafez. As always, we're live on Facebook, YouTube and X. And if you're listening back in the future, then do make sure you're following us on @GiveMeSport so you can see when the live shows are taking place and you can get up to the minute news as well as it happens. For more info on any of the stories discussed, you can head over to GiveMeSport's website and make sure you're following us across socials, where you can also get your questions and comments into us live on the show. Right, should we get into it? This is Market Madness from GiveMeSport. Well, Ben, just quickly, before we move on to the Bodø story, which is one of the most amazing stories we're going to discuss, we're halfway through the January transfer window. We're even over halfway through. There's only 11 days left.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. And it started with managers going, particularly Enzo Maresca at Chelsea, New Year's Eve into New Year's Day, Ruben Amorim, followed by Xabi Alonso and Wilfried Nancy at Celtic as well. Man City, the big movers so far, Semenya and Gay. Bodø still humbled them, as we're about to chat about in just a second. And now we have to wait on things like Crystal Palace and Jean-Philippe Mateta, and in addition, Newcastle and defensive reinforcements, and maybe Chelsea and a centre-back as well. So I think we're in for a busy 11 days.
Yes, we absolutely are. And we cannot wait for it. And do not worry, we'll have every bit of it covered right here on Market Madness. Now, later on in the show, we're going to be taking a look at what is going wrong at Manchester City. But it's not often you get the opportunity to speak to the managing director of the club who beat them in the Champions League this week. Many are calling Bodø Glimt's 3-1 victory on Tuesday night the greatest upset in the competition's history. And Frode Thomassen joins us now. Frode, thank you so much for doing this. I mean, just talk to me about Tuesday night and how incredible it was for your side beating Manchester City in the Champions League.
For some years now, we have been competitive in European tournaments, but to be up against one of the world's best clubs, teams, it's quite special. Also, we are a small city, it's 54,000 inhabitants here, and it's 10 hours by car to the next city in the north and 10 hours by car to the next city in the south. So we are in the middle of the nowhere, north of the polar circle. So it was a special night for us here.
That's blown my mind, by the way.
No, I don't.
10-hour drive that way, 10-hour drive that's crazy. I mean, apart from really Erling Haaland, Frode, not many of the Manchester City players would have had the experience of playing in the Arctic Circle. But on the night, it really wasn't about Manchester City. It was all about how good you were and actually how much you deserved the win against Manchester City.
Yeah, of course, we did a great performance, and having a team like Man City here, I think we had a good game plan and we followed it. And but we have a good team, We made a draw against Dortmund, and we have done quite well in Champions League. We haven't got so many. We have made 3 draws, but in one way or another, I think the stats will tell that we have performed well. So when City came here, I think we also know that we were confident that we have the quality in the team, but we played a little bit different. So the game plan was real good, and the boys were working real hard. And at the end of the match, I think we deserved the win.
And of course, Champions League debutants as well. So this goes down as a famous moment in your history as well. The benefit of the Champions League financially to the club in this league phase must be massive as well. So is it therefore fair to say that this win is the greatest moment in Bodø's history?
Yeah, of course. I think for sure it is, but I think it will be the best win, I think, in Norwegian club history. Rosenborg was doing some good matches, but that's 20 years ago now. So in one way or another, in the modern time, I think this is the best club performance from a Norwegian team in history.
And now you must have confidence that you can go to Atletico Madrid, another difficult fixture, win that game, and you never know, if results go your way, you'll be in a playoff and have a chance to make the knockout stage of the Champions League.
Yeah, our club, we don't talk about winning. We are talking about performance. But I think we will perform well in Madrid. So we'll see what that gives us. But we are at a good place at the moment. We are confident. So I know we will perform well, and then we'll see if it make us go through to the playoffs. So hopefully we can deserve that, but we need to perform well in Madrid, and it's a difficult away arena to be at. I don't think they have lost many matches.
Just talk to me a little bit about Kasper Ho in particular and how important he is to your club, having scored those 2 goals against Man City.
Kasper is probably from the outside, people see the players when they play, and Kasper was the top scorer in Europe League when we made a semi-final in spring. But I think he's a really good footballer and a good striker. But yeah, as a person, he's quite special, I think, because in the team he's a good teammate and carrying the very good values, I think, and he's one of the players, I think, that the culture is really important for the club. So have the right persons playing for us and the right persons in the staff is essential. And Kasper is a leading star when it comes to that as well.
What's your perspective on him? On the one hand, so valuable to the club and scoring in the Champions League, which gives you an opportunity to still maybe make the knockout stage. On the other hand, that puts him further in the shop window. We hear here in England that Norwich City are one of the clubs that have made an inquiry. Is the club's plan to potentially engage with offers, or would you like to simply keep the player?
No, at the moment we focus on the match in Madrid. That's an important part for us. It's not to focus on the day tomorrow, but what's happening today. We haven't been, football is about, there are 2 big axes when it comes to football economy. It's about performance is one of them where you can earn money, and one of them is to sell players. For us, it has been important to focus on the performance part and building a strong team. We are not a developing team where our main goal is not to develop players and sell them. It's to make a good team, and at the moment we are a good team. We don't have to sell anyone, but if the offer is good and the player would like to go, of course we will judge it and see. But at the moment, and I think also Kasper enjoy playing in Bodø, so we'll see. But at the moment we have focus on Madrid in next Wednesday.
Appreciate it's sensitive, but is it fair to say that Norwich have been in touch though, or is that just media speculation?
We never comment player logistics.
Smart man, and that is definitely the way to approach it. Just a quick word as well on the build-up to Man City, because it's not easy, right? Due to the fact that you have a break. So all you played was friendlies, and then suddenly you return to action after your winter break. And it's Pep Guardiola's Manchester City. That was quite an atypical preparation to the game.
It's quite different, I think, for others. We like to be in where we play matches regularly, but the league in Norway ends in the beginning of December, end of November. So in practice, we didn't have had ordinary matches in 6-7 weeks time. So we have been for 2.5 weeks in Marbella in Spain and played 2 training matches, and then came back to Bodø 1 week before the match against City, and then we were here to to prepare the last week before the match on Tuesday. So that was the plan then. Today we are going to Spain again to prepare there for the match against Madrid next week. So, and then we'll see if we go through. We have to probably stay in Spain, but we'll see what's happening the next couple of weeks. But it has been a special. The pre-camp is abroad now because of the climate up here in North. So we need to prepare a different way than other teams in Europe do, I think. But it works for us. We have done that before. Some years ago, we also did it before the match against Celtic in Glasgow, and that also worked well for us. So yeah. So but we had a good plan and we prepare well. So it's not that it's a disadvantage, but it's special not to be playing ordinary matches.
And just finally, talk to me about this club's ambition, its culture, its unique fan base as well, because I've seen many Bodø games and the fans are unique. They're fantastic. They're special. This is a club, isn't it, with big ambition, and that extends off the field to things like your new stadium plans as well.
Yeah, our values is like performance and development, and in development is about improvement. I think a small club like ours, if we shall be there over a period of time, we need to take small steps every day, and it's about that is what the culture is about. It's about the human edge. I think many people think football is about money, but I think this club is an inspiration for many small clubs, because in 2017 we had a budget on 4.2 million euros. That was the total budget, and we started from there. And since then we have focus on the hard work that we have to do every day. We don't focus on goals or result. We focus on performance and being better tomorrow than we are today, and that is the culture and the mindset in the whole club. It's a big we. When we do well, everyone working in the club get bonuses, not only the players and the coaches or the staff near the players. So it's about that every element in the club has to work properly if we shall succeed in big. So, and now we are starting to build a new stadium. It will have a cost on, I think, 120 million euros. And we do it on our own. We will own the stadium. Together with partners, of course, but we don't have any public support when it comes to it from the authorities. So, and yesterday we also went into we started a new company. So we are also starting to add a company called Edge Case Ventures. So we are now also trying to be a part of the innovation elements and the startups when it comes to technology, both when it comes to players in sport, but also when it comes to fan engagement and also connecting to the arena. So a part of the mindset at the club is to always develop, always improving, that the framework around the players and the staff that compete on the highest level, that we do the best that we can out of it. And then we'll see when we perform. It has worked good so far. So we have been taking new steps the last 5-6 years, started in Conference League, quarterfinal in Conference League, Europe League. The spring in 25 we got the semi-final in the Europe League, and now finally having the opportunity to compete about against the best teams. Of course, that's also an experience, and we learn from every time we play out in Europe. Yeah. So, but we are excited here in the north.
I'm excited as well to see how Bodø progress. Just before I let you go, I know the players can't exactly have a little alcoholic beverage or a night out, but how did you and the leadership team celebrate? Did you get yourself a local Arctic Circle beer if one exists?
No. I went home, drank a glass of milk with my wife.
Wonderful.
I had a little glass of red wine at the evening, but it was no party, Every day is like every day it's tasks and meetings. So, but at the end of the season, we used to celebrate one time, but in the year it's always about improving. Yeah. So you have to live a balanced life. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, milk and wine, I'm on board. I might try that combination.
But for those of you that are just joining us, that is Frode Thomassen, who is the managing director of Bodø Glimt, who of course beat Manchester City in the Champions League in one of the biggest upsets that competition has ever seen. So it was so nice of him to take 15 minutes out of his day to come on Market Madness and speak to us. Right, next up, I think we have some breaking news, Ben.
Jørgen Strand Larsen, one to watch between now and the end of the window. We know that West Ham had made an early inquiry, but were put off by the asking price. But now my understanding is Crystal Palace could enter the race for the Wolves striker. And there's a connection here because the Palace sporting director, Matt Hobbs, was formerly at Wolves and one of the driving forces behind bringing Strand Larsen to Molineux. Now, this is obviously linked to Jean-Philippe Mateta, who has told Crystal Palace he wants to leave. He was disappointed that the move to Juventus didn't come off. Juve were trying to do a loan with an obligation, and Palace, if they are to sell, and it is an if, want a permanent exit, and they value Mateta about £40 million. So let's see whether Crystal Palace now make a move. I'm not so sure Palace would be put off by the asking price, even though Strand Larsen hasn't been as in form in the Premier League as he was last season. And the reason why I say that is because if Palace sell Mateta, guess what? They want 40 million. And if they're to buy Strand Larsen, maybe 40 million, perhaps the price will drop a little bit depending on the structure of the deal in the final few days of the window. But any Mateta exit could obviously fund a move for Strand Larsen. So if Mateta goes, Strand Larsen to Crystal Palace is one to watch.
Ooh, I think that'd be a very good signing. I cannot believe the Crystal Palace exodus since winning the FA Cup. I cannot believe it's gone like that since them winning it. I mean, in a few minutes, we will be looking at what on earth is going on sort of at Crystal Palace as a whole. But usually we do a Ben sort of question. If you're a Market Madness regular, which I hope you are if you're listening or watching, you'll know we do a question at the start and Ben answers it at the end. We're switching it up this week and we're trying to give you as much information and keep you as up to date as we can. So we're going to get up to speed with everything that's happening right now in the transfer window. And you started off with Jean-Philippe Mateta. Aston Villa, a couple of high-profile strikers are on their radar, one of which is JP, but the other one is Tammy Abraham.
Yeah, and this is fascinating because Abraham is the preference for Aston Villa, but it's complicated by the fact that he's at Besiktas and they have an obligation to buy, which legally would kick in at the end of the season. But you got to do the deal with Besiktas. And of course, from their perspective, if they do nothing, Tammy Abraham officially becomes a Besiktas player at the end of the season. So Besiktas are adamant now that everything has been met to trigger what was a conditional obligation. And this is why Villa have made several trips over to Istanbul rather than to Rome. Abraham is the preference. He has agreed a 4.5-year contract and he wants the move, but it's all on Villa and Besiktas. And if that deal doesn't come off, keep an eye on potentially a move for Mateta instead. But the challenge is that even though we've heard reports that Evan Gesand could end up going to Crystal Palace. So there's two-way business there. I'm told that Palace have got other targets. Strand Larsen, who I've just mentioned. Also, Youssef En-Nesyri, who is being linked with Villa and Everton and Nottingham Forest as well. And still Siddiqui Sheriff. We've heard some reports in the last half an hour that Wrexham might make an audacious move for the Angers striker. But Palace are also in conversations. And it's not actually a problem with the agreement between Angers and Palace. It's more about the trappings of the deal, things like bonuses and agent fees that need to be resolved if that one gets over the line.
Okay, perfect. So that's Aston Villa. Let's move on to Arsenal then. Are Alexander Zinchenko and Ethan Nwaneri on their way out?
Yeah, so Ethan Nwaneri is done. He's passed his medical. Marseille, that is a loan, but there's no buy option. And this was seen as a deal that suits all parties simply because when Ethan Nwaneri signed his new deal, it was all about you're going to get game time on the right or through the centre. Then Noni Madueke arrives and obviously can play and deputise or compete with Saka on the right. as well as switch to the left. And at the last minute, after Kai Havertz got injured, Eberechi Eze gets over the line, and suddenly Ethan Nwaneri is struggling for game time in the two positions where he thought he might be relatively integral for Arsenal this season. So off to Marseille, no option to buy as part of that deal. With Alexander Zinchenko, it was originally meant to be a recall from Nottingham Forest and then a second loan to Ajax. And there's an agreement in principle, by the way, between the two clubs, but it got changed at the last minute to a permanent exit. So my understanding now is that a nominal fee will be paid by Ajax to Arsenal, and Zinchenko will move permanently, not on a loan, to Ajax. And that's another one that is agreed in principle.
Okay, let's do my team, shall we? What's the latest? Is Jeremy? Is it Jacquet?
Jacquet, yeah.
Jacquet. And because, I mean, is he their only target? Is this another inexperienced 20-year-old defender, let me guess?
I mean, Chelsea view whoever they sign as a starting centre-back, and Jeremy Jacquet is one of those players like a Lenny Yoro, perhaps, that is viewed as a generational talent and a player that Liam Rossini knows well. So Jeremy Jacquet is their leading choice, but Rennes want a record 65 million euros or more, surpassing the 64 million euros that saw them sell Jeremy Doku to Man City. And Chelsea don't want to go that high, which means that they're either going to have to up that offer or get creative. And there could be a scenario where the formula allows Jacquet to either stay at Rennes until the end of the season on a pre-agreement or be loaned back. So Chelsea are in talks there. Jacobo Ramon at Como is another possibility, but my feeling is that Como won't sell because he only joined them in the summer. And actually, I'm told by Spanish sources that Real Madrid might trigger the buyback option that they've got, which is believed to be very low, only in the region of 7 million euros. So that's fascinating, because if you're Chelsea and you pivot from Jacquet, you'd likely offer more than 7 million euros. And Como, knowing that Real might trigger the buyback clause in the summer, might suddenly become open to selling mid-season. But I think the player's quite keen on going back to Real Madrid, and we've got no contact yet because they're focusing on Jacquet. And Marcos Senesi is the other one, free agent in the summer. So in theory, you could offer Bournemouth a fee now, and some would say they might have to, from a financial perspective, entertain it. But after the sale of Antoine Semenyo, my feeling is that Bournemouth's PSR position is okay. And there's kind of a gentleman's agreement in place between Senesi and Bournemouth that says he's not going to go mid-season. And as of now, Bournemouth haven't had any approach from any club, including Chelsea. So for now, Chelsea are focused on Jeremy Jacquet. Let's see if they go up in their valuation, which is really the only way of getting the deal done now, or they get creative and give Rennes the opportunity to keep the player until the end of the season.
Okay, any outgoings at Chelsea? I suppose Raheem Sterling is the one that people are talking about.
Yeah, I mean, you've got Raheem Sterling, who is still looking for options, but big wage, and he doesn't want to go to Saudi. There would be a preference from Sterling to stay in London, but it has to be permanent for Sterling, not loan, at least at this stage. Let's see if it changes in the final days of the window. Axel Disasi's back with the first team squad. I think that is down to his professionalism, but also it kind of puts him more in the shop window, because Chelsea are in a much stronger position if they're saying we're comfortable with him being a first team member versus keeping him in the bomb squad. Lyon are one of the clubs that have explored that deal in the past. Roma as well. Some say that Bournemouth still retain an interest, as well as Crystal Palace, having lost Mark Gahey. But we'll have to wait and see there, because Disasi's being offered to a lot of clubs. But I don't think necessarily that many Premier League clubs at this stage are biting. Kendry Pires could come back from Strasbourg and then get another loan in England to help with his acclimatization. And that's kind of where we stand at the moment. But suggestions, for example, that PSG are going to come in now for Enzo Fernandez, I'm told, are wide of the mark.
Okay, well, there's been rumours going on at the moment about Cole Palmer, and I'm not enjoying it. Jay Bless has asked us on X, any news on Cole Palmer incoming at Manchester United? I suppose that was after there was reports that he's not enjoying it in London and he misses his friends back home.
Yeah, my understanding with Cole Palmer is that he's only focused on Chelsea and that he's completely untouchable. So even if there were interested parties, and of course there will be, then Chelsea are not going to entertain any business. Palmer has been struggling with this recurrent groin issue. Should be okay, by the way, in terms of his overall fitness. Beyond that, individual problem for the weekend. So for now, I'm not aware of Cole Palmer having any conversation with Chelsea about wanting to leave. I'm not aware of any suitors asking about him because they know that Chelsea won't sell. So this is not something Chelsea fans should be worried about at this stage. But obviously, in the long run, players like Cole Palmer and Reece James and Enzo Fernandez and Moises Caicedo sign long-term deals to be invested in this Chelsea project. And what they're hoping for is under Liam Rossini, project stabilises, they get regular Champions League football and they win silverware. And if that happens at Chelsea Football Club, I expect these star names to both want to stay and to be untouchable because Chelsea will not entertain business for them.
Oh, Ben, that's absolutely great news. Sticking on Manchester United, obviously Carrick's taken over till the end of the season. Can we expect any sort of business from them?
Yeah, so there'll be meetings in the next few days directly with Carrick and Manchester United's recruitment team to find out whether Carrick is wishing for an opportunistic short-term last-minute signing. So the official Man United position, if you like, is we didn't plan on doing that much. Anything we were going to do would be summer business move forwards. That's why they were in the race for Semenya, but lost out to Manchester City. And if nothing happens, it's not failure. That was always the plan, to do very little. But it's interesting that Carrick doesn't carry caretaker, even though everyone knows he's only the manager until the end of the season. His official title is head coach. So the recruitment team are treating him like the head coach, and they're asking him, what do you need? And if they're to do anything, it's possible, but not guaranteed. It will be a midfielder, something short-termist, and Carrick will be a driving force on whether they do or don't. And at the moment, I think Carrick's input might well be Kobbie Mainoo is back. He's starting. He was outstanding in the Manchester derby. That is like a new central midfielder. But, for example, Ajax have inquired about Manuel Ugarte. Casemiro's contract expires at the end of the season. Bruno Fernandes has got a 60 million euros release clause. So there might be an ability for Manchester United to bring a midfielder now, knowing that another player at the football club, probably Ugarte, because Mainoo is trending in a more involved direction, could get less game time. And as a result, if the right opportunity presents itself, don't rule out Manchester United trying. Reports suggesting Ruben Loftus-Cheek, I'm told, are more around Villa than Man United, but he was offered to Man United, but they've not taken a conversation there. Wilfred Ndidi at Besiktas is a player that they looked at over the summer, and maybe a loan with a buy option is possible there. So keep an eye on Man United until the very final minutes of the window, because they might pull out a surprise in midfield. But if nothing happens, the club will bill it as always a quiet January, and then come summer, the likes of Elliot Anderson, Adam Wharton, Angelo Stiller, etc., will all form part of their thinking, along, of course, potentially with Carlos Baleba.
And just finally then, Newcastle. Does Eddie Howe want a defender?
Yeah, Eddie Howe does want a defender. And if you excuse the bad pun, they're either going to get a target or a target. By that, I mean, Matt Targett's either coming back from Middlesbrough because there's a recall clause, or they'll get another young defensive target. So something will happen for Newcastle. And interestingly, with Matt Targett, the recall clause on a loan would normally be gone at this stage of the window, but Newcastle have extended it by 7 days. So that tells you that they're delaying to see if they can find a defender. And if they can't, it's very likely that Matt Targett will be recalled. Other non-Matt Targett targets are Toulouse's Dayan Mathali, who can play left back or centre back. Thiago Gabriel at Lecce, who's more a central defender but quite versatile. Club Brugge's left back Joaquin Seys, who I don't think Club Brugge will allow to go mid-season, but let's see, because sometimes money can talk. But the player might wait until summer because he's got loads of European suitors. Dortmund there, I'm told, are one to watch. And then, as we revealed on GiveMeSport, Brooke Norton-Cuffy at Genoa, which is more right-sided. He's a right back, and that would help them because Tino Livramento is, of course, sidelined.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Ben. We hope that has kept you all up to date with what is going on in the transfer window right now. And let us know in the chat, in the comments, if there's any teams you want us to focus on, or if there are any questions you have, I'm sure Ben will be able to answer them. Manchester City have been by far and away the busiest in the January transfer window with 2 brilliant signings. But it has been a bad week for them. A Derby Day defeat at Old Trafford, players refunding supporters who saw their side lose to Bodø Glimt, as we've covered in Norway on Tuesday night. Pep Guardiola admitted it's all going wrong, with rumours escalating he maybe could leave at the end of the season. Like I said, they have made 2 significant signings, Antoine Semenyo and Mark Guéhi. The Crystal Palace captain signed late last week, right from under the noses of Liverpool. So, what made him choose City over his many other admirers?
Foremost, is such an honour, such a big club to come and play for this club, and I think for me, I've always just been obsessed with getting better and wanting to improve. That's something that I'm constantly striving for, and I think this is the perfect place for me to do that. You know, the environment, you know, I've heard so much about the club and the fans, you know, the players speak for themselves, the manager, so it's definitely the right environment for me to improve and just get better, and, you know, hopefully I can bring what I have to the table to help every single person here too.
You've captained England at various age group levels, and obviously you were Crystal Palace captain from a very young age as well. It seems leadership kind of comes naturally to you. Where do you think that comes from?
I'm not too sure, to be honest. It's something that I'd say other people have picked up on. It's not necessarily something I'd say I have, or I believe that I have, to be honest. I'm just trying to be myself. It's something that, you know, since I have had the opportunity to captain those teams, I've tried to improve on it, tried to really focus and hone in on those leadership skills. And it's something, you know, hopefully with this squad I can improve on by just looking at the other leaders that are in the team as well.
And just one last one, away from the pitch, you know, when you're not on the, when you're not playing or when you're not training, I know you like books, films, that kind of thing. Just give the City fans an idea of how you disconnect from football and try and enjoy yourself in your free time.
Yeah, like you say, I love a film, I love a series, love to read as well. Anytime I get to spend with my sisters, I spend it with them. It's always good because none of us are serious, always laughing and joking. And then love a coffee shop. So if there's any good coffee recommendations anywhere, then please let me know.
I mean, I don't have any coffee recommendations for Manchester. Do you, Ben? Could we help out Mark Guéhi? I'm not sure we could.
You know, I tried to give up coffee in 2026, and then on New Year's Eve at exactly midnight, I realised that I had an espresso martini. So I immediately screwed myself over with the coffee thing. And
no, that doesn't count.
I've been having
You're
about
fine.
4 a day. But all coffee is good coffee for me because it just keeps me awake.
I've got no coffee recommend. So I don't really drink coffee. I'm not a coffee drinker. So I'm sure Mark Guéhi will have no problem finding a good coffee shop. Right, joining us now is Shamoon Hafez, who covers Manchester City for BBC Sport. Shamoon, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for waiting along as well. We heard from Mark Guéhi there. Obviously, that's such a positive signing. Antoine Semenyo, such a positive signing. But it just feels a little bit negative at Manchester City right now. I mean, compared to last season, it's probably an improvement. But what do you feel is going on? What do you feel is going wrong?
Hi, thanks for having me on. Firstly, I had a beautiful Spanish latte yesterday here in Manchester, just around the corner from me in Charlton. So I think I might have to give Matt Guéhi the nudge about that. But yeah, things with Manchester City, they ended the last year, 2025, with 8 straight victories. But it's been a thoroughly miserable 2026 for them, not one in the league so far. Pep Guardiola sides don't tend to lose a game. They've lost back-to-back matches, which is, you know, extraordinary. They got outplayed in the Manchester derby, and then one of the biggest shocks in Champions League history at Bodø Glimt. And as you say, that there was a feel-good factor early on in the season. Pep Guardiola was speaking about the good vibes from the Club World Cup. Me and Ben were there to see that. They got knocked out by Al Hilal, but he still spoke about the spirit in the side. But how much has that spirit been taken out of them with these 2 losses? This was going to be an arduous run of fixtures from 1st of January to the 1st of February. They're playing 10 matches in 4 different competitions. And it's not gone very well so far.
Do you think those two new signings, we've mentioned them, Antoine Semenyo and Mark Gahey, they are two of the best players that were available in this window, and Manchester City have got them. Do you feel like they on their own are enough to sort of revitalise this City squad, or do you feel like there maybe issues go a bit deeper than that?
They certainly will help. They've got 8 players out injured. They had Bernardo Silva missing through suspension in Bodø. Antoine Semenyo was ineligible. Now Rodri will be missing the final Champions League game, which they must win to, try and finish in the top 8. But I think there's some tactical issues going on as well. The high line in Bodø was exposed, tremendously by them. They had 3 21 years old or younger players in the back line, and they were exposed. Max Alain, poor guy, on his Champions League debut, had a bit of a shocker, culpable for first 2 goals. They're missing that real experience, which Gahey will bring immediately to the side. They need a left-footed centre-back because of Josko Guardiola's injury, and he looks like he's going to be out long-term. But injuries, suspensions, the tactics, it's, as Guardiola said, it's all going wrong at the moment for him.
When I look at the City team, and I know it's obviously, Shamoon, not the City team of old, and I do still feel like this team are capable of going on a run of 10, 15 wins in a row, especially at this stage of the season. Do you still feel like that? Obviously, you cover Manchester City. You've watched them probably a lot more than I have this season. Do you still feel like that's in there from Pep Guardiola and this group of players, given the injuries, given the suspensions, that they are capable, or do you think it's not possible?
Well, they finished the year, as I said, with 8 straight victories. We felt that was going to be the start of the juggernaut building up, 14, 15 games winning streak. But since drawing at Sunderland on New Year's Day, things haven't improved for them. At this moment in time, I don't see them going on a long run again like this because they've got so many players out. So many young players in the side coming in. Rodri is struggling to find his best form. Erling Haaland's not scoring, which is a great loss to them at the moment. So he's going to have to tweak something. He's going to have to take it back to basics, solidify the back line somehow, and then take it from there, build up from the back again if he can. But it's difficult without having the likes of Ruben Diaz and Josko Guardiola, who sort of progressed the side so much of the pitch with their line-breaking passes.
Shamoon, great to see you. I'll come on to my question in a moment, but I should point out, for full transparency, this guy actually saved my life during the Club World Cup, along with Jeremy Jacquet, because we were at Universal Studios, I'm sure you remember, Shamoon, and having survived the Hulk roller coaster, and Shamoon was like a beast, he went on all the rides. We went on this Harry Potter ride of all things, and I came off, and I was so white in the face, wasn't I, Shamoon? And you and Jeremy Jacquet looked after me.
You're whiter than Voldemort, weren't you? The colour had drained out of your face. It was quite funny that locals had spotted that and were asking if you were okay as well.
That's
honestly,
brilliant.
Can't believe I survived the really serious rides and then a little Harry Potter
Got
ride.
done by Harry Potter.
Precisely, yeah. Quidditch, man, my undoing. But Shamoon, let's come on to a more serious topic. Pep Guardiola, obviously a lot of speculation about, is he going to go this summer? Is he going to see out his contract? Richard Keys from beIN Sports even said he might walk away this week. What are you hearing about Pep's motivation at the moment and his overall future?
Yeah, since Richard Keys come in, there's only 1 day left. So if it's going to happen, it's going to have to happen tomorrow, isn't it? And whether Richard Keys is proved right or not, we'll see by the end of tomorrow. But he has been asked about his future numerous times by journalists this season. He's always said he's got a contract for which ends until the following season. But he's always joked as well that people are getting bored of him and they want to see him go after 10 years. What we do know is that City have already started succession planning. You'll know better who is on that list. There's no sort of firm names on that. But Enzo Maresca has been linked. I'd say Vincent Kompany is someone who'd come quite high on that list. Maybe Luis Enrique as well. But I think only Pep Guardiola knows when he will step down as Manchester City manager. We say football, nothing surprises us in football anymore, but would it surprise us if he got sacked by the hierarchy at Manchester City? That would be an incredible shock to all of us. I think how they go this season will probably make up his mind. They went last season without winning a major trophy, although he keeps reminding us that they did win the Community Shield. The League Cup semi-final second leg against Newcastle is, I think, it's one of the most important games this season, because if they can get through that and pick up the League Cup trophy, that'll give them so much hope and momentum and belief for the rest of the season, to see how they go, and then we might see a decision either way from Pep Guardiola at the end of the season.
And then just a word, Shamoon, on potential outgoings. The feeling, at least I'm told, is that Oscar Bob could go between now and the end of the window. We know Fulham are in talks. Dortmund have been linked as well. And then Savino and Omar Marmoush, you sense that Man City want to keep hold of them this window. And a final word on a player that you interviewed along with me in the Club World Cup, which is Bernardo Silva, who told us in the off-season he knows exactly what he's doing, but is yet to announce what that is. Some reports in Portugal say Benfica is the direction of travel there, regardless of where he goes, that Bernardo Silva will leave Manchester City in the summer.
Yeah, I think Oscar Bob is sort of the nailed on one to leave in this window. And as you said, Bernardo Silva coming to the end of his contract. He hasn't publicly announced what he's going to do, but if he was going to sign a new contract, wouldn't that have been done already and announced? But as he's the captain of Manchester City, Guardiola relies on him so much, not just for his sort of moving around the ball on the pitch, but his leadership of it. Guardiola mentioned in the tough periods last season, Bernardo Silva was the one that was always there, and he said he loves him. So, there might be a contract extension for him, or those reports may come to fruition. Another one to look out for, maybe Calvin Phillips, still at Manchester City, if people have forgotten. Could he go out on loan? Stefan Ortega, the fourth choice keeper, has not been included in any squads this season. He's another one that will potentially leave. But I'm told, despite the lack of playing time, James Trafford will remain at City until the end of the transfer window. But whether that's the case in the summer is a different question.
Shamoon, thank you so much for joining us. Just before you go, can you just let everyone that's watching and listening know where they can find your work?
Yeah, Shamoon.Hafez on Instagram, and you can sign up to notifications on the BBC Sport website for all my articles. And
he's also available for coffee recommendations and to save lives of women that can't survive fairground rounds.
Yeah. What goes on in Orlando stays in Orlando.
Clearly not, Shamoon. Clearly not. Thank you so much. Always a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us. Oh, so that was Manchester City, who have had a pretty bad start to 2026. I mean, if you're Crystal Palace, I don't know what you'd even call this start to 2026, to be perfectly honest. Humiliation in the FA Cup. The holders out in possibly the biggest FA Cup upset of all time to Macclesfield. Then Oliver Glasner announced he's leaving on the same day that Mark Gay's departure to Manchester City looks like it's happening. Now, Jean-Philippe Mateta wants to go too. I can't even. Can you just imagine being a Crystal Palace fan, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, it's very uncertain. And the only saving grace for Palace fans is publicly it's one narrative, but privately they did know that Glasner was going as early as October. I suspect they realised that Mateta and Gay both wanted exits in the winter as well, but we'll find out a bit more from Bobby Manzi, I think, right now.
Yeah, we will, because GiveMeSport's Crystal Palace correspondent Bobby is with us now. Bobby, I suppose the first question is, What on earth is going on at Crystal Palace? Can you try and sum this up?
It's a bit of a mess, really, isn't it? It's, I think the word is tragic for Crystal Palace supporters. The manager's off, the captain's gone. Jean-Philippe Mateta wants to go. Whether he will go or not is another matter. I don't think it will be this window as things are at the moment, because nobody's got the cash to pay for him. There could be a few more exits in the summer as well. Adam Wharton is another one to keep an eye on. I mean, this is the model. This is selling players and being a selling club. But whether it's sustainable to do them all within 18 months is another matter.
Obviously, you mentioned JP Mateta, rumours that he, wants to leave Crystal Palace. Was this always likely to happen, or do you think this has maybe been triggered by Oliver Glasner leaving the club in the summer?
No, I think this was always the plan. I think he's turned down quite a big contract to almost double his £55,000 a week wages. So he wants out of the football club where he deems that he's not been earning enough for the role he plays in the team. He thinks he's better served going elsewhere to try and get a bigger wage packet with a bigger signing on fee. And that's this is a money motivation for JP Mateta to leave the football club and being pushed by his representatives.
And obviously, after winning the FA Cup, Bobby, you can imagine Crystal Palace fans' frustrations. They've just had the greatest day in their history. They've won the FA Cup. They've beaten Manchester City in the process. They then won the Community Shield. And for it to all go downhill so quickly, is there anything they could have done differently from that FA Cup win, which would have meant maybe they wouldn't be in the situation they are today? Or do you think, a bit like JP, that this was maybe always likely to happen?
I think there was an inevitability to, once they won the FA Cup, that Oliver Glasner would leave the football club. I think his stock was too high to kind of remain at Palace and keep moving forward. I think with the way that Palace had a really big window, probably about 4 years ago, all the contracts were going to be up at the same time. So if you had big players and they developed as they were supposed to, they were all kind of going to go at the same kind of time. So none of this is a surprise. With Mark, maybe they should have sold him earlier to get the cash in earlier. And then obviously they could have strengthened other areas of the squad, because the trouble you've got is there is this mass exodus of players, but there's also nobody coming through the door that can kind of fill the gap because they haven't recruited well enough. So a bit more clever nature in the market would have got them moving a bit and would have made this season a bit more stable than it is, because they feel like they're in a really rocky moment at the moment.
Just talking a bit more, Bobby, about Glasner. I know officially club sources have kind of hinted that when he made the announcement he was leaving, it was at the same time as basically confirming Gade's Man City was done. And that was to just get it out in the open and out the way. Then after Sunderland, it became really tense. And Glasner seemed at that point to be almost asking Crystal Palace to sack him. And I've since learned that maybe Palace didn't know that he was going to publicly come out and say he was going midway through the season, even though he told Steve Parish privately in October that he wouldn't be signing a new deal. So what have you made of the tensions between Glasner and Palace that have played out very publicly? And is all of that now behind the parties? And do you still expect Glasner to see out the full season?
Yes, I don't think this was a sinister attempt to get sacked by any means. I think Glasner is quite an emotional character. And he's very, very passionate. And I think after games, from having known him for 18 months now, it really all comes out. As what he actually thinks comes out, because he's so passionate about things. So he's obviously had these frustrations from not being backed, and as he quoted it, being abandoned. And it all just kind of came to the fore. And he wants to stand by his players. He wants to make sure they can have another historic season, break the club's record points tally again, as they did last season, and win the Conference League. And at the moment, the sense that I get is he doesn't think he's got the resources for that, when they really should. They're the richest side in the Conference League. They should be going on to win that competition. And it feels like they're going short. I think Glasner will see out the season. Another couple of losses might change things, because they're obviously 10 without a win now. And if the toxicity continues to increase among the fan base, which it certainly feels like it is, and if Glasner continues to be combatant in press conferences, it might force the club's hand. But as far as I'm aware, they don't really want to pay out the compensation. They're aware that Tottenham could come in if they get rid of Thomas Frank. And obviously that would then lead to Palace getting paid for Oliver Glasner. And just for the stability, where so much is changing, they don't really want the manager to go in January. So all of these are coming together, and they just don't want to make that decision now.
We ran a story a few weeks ago, Bobby, together on GiveMeSport about succession planning, which is what all well-run clubs do. And naturally, Crystal Palace will be moving from succession planning to more like formal outreach because they're aware they have to make a change, hopefully in the summer. Just outline who some of the early candidates are. When we broke that story, 2 from La Liga and a surprise name that is now at Liv's club.
Yeah, so Liam Rosinia was certainly one that Palace had been monitoring for quite a while. They were obviously impressed with him out in Strasbourg, but they'd been monitoring him a long time before that. So he was always an option. Bordalas and Perez at Rayo Vallecano are 2 from Spain that Palace are keen on and have been monitoring. There is the German guy whose name I cannot think of off the top of my head. And also the other name was Andoni Iraola at Bournemouth.
Ooh.
That would be a really ambitious move. It's something that Sammy Mockbell at the BBC put out a couple of days ago, and it's something I've been aware of for a while. If Palace can win the Conference League and get Europa League football, then there's obviously the chance there that they could almost lure him away. I think Bournemouth are planning to have contract talks with Iraola next month, so see how things play out there. But Palace can almost sell a project to him, and he's obviously could be in the market for a new thing. That is another one they're looking at.
Just a last one from me. Even though it feels like it's Palace drama, we mustn't forget that they broke their club record to bring in Brennan Johnson, and there still might be more signings, even if Jean-Philippe Mateta ends up staying. One player they're in talks with is Siddiqui Sheriff. I know we've heard some reports this morning that Wrexham are going to make an audacious hijack. What I can tell you on that is that there's been no bid yet. Palace seemingly not that far off with Onguers, but I know there's all these other aspects like bonuses and agent fees and so on. Do you expect Palace, whether in that position or elsewhere, to make more senior signings this month, regardless of whether Mateta stays or goes?
Yeah, so I think they're certainly trying, but there's not been much progress on that front yet. The manager name has just come to me. It's Roger Smith, who used to be the Benfica boss. And so on the signing front, Siddiqui Sheriff is the one they want, regardless of whether Mateta leaves the football club. That there has been a bit of hold up there. As far as I'm aware, Wrexham aren't actually interested in him at the moment. I think there's a bit of games going on there. And so as far as I'm concerned, I'm not expecting a move from Wrexham. Palace are very much the front runners. The player is keen to join Crystal Palace. So it's just whether Palace can strike an agreement with Angers. They are looking at a right wing back. But that's kind of gone very quiet at the moment. There's a world where they like to bring a centre mid in as well. And of course, they've got to replace Mark Gay. But my understanding at the moment on that front is they're looking at short-term loan options to get them through to the summer before then signing a Mark Gay replacement in the summer.
And just finally, Bobby, I've spoken to Crystal Palace. I mean, it wasn't that long ago. I was jumping around in the Temple Bar in Dublin, where they were all so excited about this Conference League journey, and everything was good, and it was all merry. And I've spoken to a lot of the Palace fans that I know are like, well, we've won the FA Cup. They've given me that day, so everything else, I'm just like, yeah, it is what it is. Do you feel like the fans are split, or do you feel like they do really care and maybe thought they could push on, and they're a little bit gutted with how it's all gone?
I think there is a little split. I think there's like the older kind of fan base are very much
care.
Well, we've done everything, and that I ever expected Palace to do more. We're on a European tour, so let's just enjoy it. I think that's one of the narratives that come out. But when I speak to younger fans or middle-aged fans, it's very much Palace should really be kicking off. They should be kicking on. They should be using the FA Cup as a catalyst to move forward. Whereas it actually feels if you stand still, you could end up regressing and doing a Leicester or a Southampton or Wolves this season. It all feels very familiar that you sell your best players, you don't replace them. You have one or two really great seasons, and then you just fall away completely. And I think that is the massive concern in the fan base at the moment.
Yeah. Bobby, thank you so much. Just let everyone, obviously, you're GiveMeSport's Crystal Palace correspondent, but where can they find that work and any other work you do?
Yeah, it's just Bobby Manzi on Twitter. Anything I do, I put out on there. I think I write for everyone under the sun at the minute. So yeah, it's just there.
Perfect. Go and follow Bobby, and you can keep up to date with everything he covers. Bobby, thank you so much for coming on as well. We've had a busy show, haven't we? It's always busy. It's Busy at Crystal Palace, busy at Man City. But before we go, Ben, Emmanuel Amu is asking, is there any news from Liverpool?
Yeah, quite a quiet window as far as Liverpool are concerned. They don't want to panic buy now. And a lot of Liverpool fans ask me, why would they not come in for Mark Gahey? The short answer is that the overall finances didn't make sense to Liverpool, because you're not just talking about fee, but wage and agent fees. And Liverpool never weaken themselves in the market, or very rarely, by overpaying for a player. So the Man City strategy was, we're going to throw everything at you, move now, and you're going to play now, because Josko, Vardiel, Ruben Diaz, John Stones, all out. The Liverpool tactic was, if you want Liverpool Football Club, you wait for Liverpool Football Club and you move in the summer after the World Cup. And Gay wanted to go now, and Man City's pitch was strong. So they will wait likely now until the summer to get an eventual heir to Virgil van Dijk. Now, whether that player starts as potentially a partner to Van Dijk and then moves over to the left-hand side of central defence will remain to be seen. But they want a long-term heir to Virgil van Dijk. Ibrahima Konate is still in extension talks, but there's been no significant breakthrough at this stage. And just a word also on Mickey van der Ven and links with Liverpool. The player is on record as basically saying his whole family are Liverpool fans. I'm told at this stage that Tottenham Hotspur value Mickey van der Ven as not just a record defender sale, but as a British transfer record fee, even though this summer he'll only have 2 years left on his deal. Nothing is going to happen now. Mickey van der Ven will wait, see where Tottenham are at in the summer, and then understand what kind of interest he has. And of course, Tottenham want to try and get him to sign a contract extension as well. So Liverpool haven't yet picked Virgil van Dijk's heir because they have a short list, and Gay was so high up on that they thought they'd got the deal done last summer. So Liverpool will have several targets. I'm not aware that they've reached out to Van Dijk or that they've reached out to Van der Ven. I'm not aware that they've said to their current captain, you're going to be phased out in 26, 27, or whether he's going to still start. And I think that's a work in progress, like Mo Salah. And then with Van der Ven, he's still waiting to understand the Liverpool or another club potentially going to come in. PSG have appreciated Mickey van der Ven for quite some time. So Liverpool with Van Dijk have to understand when he might be phased out. And that will obviously impact any kind of starting left centre-back that comes in and when they're going to get that instant game time, especially if Konate extends. And with Van der Ven, I think this is more a summer saga than now, despite a lot of media reports, because Liverpool are going to be quite cautious. And naturally, if Tottenham's valuation remains a British transfer record type number, that for now will ward off the market. So Mickey van der Ven's future, one to watch for sure, but it's all going to depend, as far as I'm concerned, as to where that Tottenham project is come summer, before the player makes a determination as to whether he wants to extend or potentially start exploring options.
Right, perfect. Thank you very much, Ben. And finally, we have some more breaking news. And could it be a former Chelsea? Obviously, it's Chelsea. A former Chelsea star could potentially be coming back to the Premier League.
So this relates to N'Golo Kante, as you say, former Chelsea, now in Saudi with Al Ittihad. And there is Premier League interest, and Kante is a free agent in the summer, but it's actually Fenerbahce that are really pushing. And in the last 24 hours, they've had another meeting with Al Ittihad. So N'Golo Kante has actually agreed terms, which would include a wage reduction, and said to Fenerbahce he wants to join now. But the big challenge is Al Ittihad. And Sergio Conceição, the manager of Al Ittihad, in the last 24 hours has told his club board he does not want Kante to go, even if Kante doesn't sign a new deal at Al Ittihad. So Fenerbahce are struggling to reach a club-to-club agreement with Al Ittihad. They're prepared to pay somewhere between 12 and 15 million euros for a player that's only got 6 months left on his contract. But Al Ittihad are digging in here and saying no. West Ham made a call, which is why you allude to the Premier League and a possible return. And if we go all the way back 2 windows ago, West Ham even went to Al Ittihad and at that point said they'd be prepared to offer about £20 million, 25 million euros to get Kante out of Saudi Arabia. But as you'll know, Liv, Kante's not a player to agitate. Kante's not a player to hand in a transfer request. Kante is Mr. Professional. And as a consequence, if Al Ittihad continue to say no, he's going nowhere. But if the door opens from Al Ittihad, Fenerbahce is Kante's most likely destination.
Oh, I love N'Golo Kante, and I'd love to see him back in the Premier League, but I don't think I'd like to see him back at West Ham. Back at West Ham? I don't think I'd like to see him at West Ham.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Kante would turn down a Premier League move either. But I think what people forget about Turkey is the wage is still super high. So it's not quite Saudi money, but there's so much money at the moment in Turkish football. So believe it or not, these Turkish clubs can prize away a player from Saudi Arabia and not quite match the wage because there's tax implications, but it's a high old wage, which is why Victor Osimhen stayed in Turkey over going to Saudi Arabia. Premier League clubs, especially like West Ham United, who are battling relegation, they can't match that package. And the last thing to say on West Ham, as an aside, another GMS exclusive broken by Andy Dillon about 10 days ago. All West Ham players, new signings, future signings, current players, if they go down, it's a 50% wage cut.
Oh, also, do you know what I just loved about West Ham was that I swear Callum Wilson left on a free about 4 days ago, and then he scored the winner against Spurs. I was like, and now he's apparently not leaving. I was like, what?
Yeah, he was
very confusing.
Almost out the door, and they were halfway through termination talks, and it was seemingly driven by Nuno. And then he scores, and now he's staying. So that's bad news for Al Shabab and Celtic. Another story that we broke on GMS, Celtic an inquiry, and Al Shabab actually were going to fly Wilson over about 5 days ago and basically show him their stadium and maybe even start the formal process because they were really confident that Wilson would become a free agent and would want Saudi Arabia. But now the expectation is that he stays at West Ham. And I actually think that's a really good decision by West Ham.
Yeah, I do as well. Right. Ben, thank you so much. As always, that is it for this week's Market Madness. But don't worry, Joel Bayer will be back with more exclusive content and breaking transfer news. Will be live next Thursday at 11 o'clock. So you're not going to want to miss that. Plus, we'll also have a deadline day double for you next week too. Or we'll have news of that because that's the following week, of course. Until then, you can listen back on your podcast app of choice. All you have to do is search for Market Madness. And for more info on any of the stories we've discussed and so much more, you can head to GiveMeSport.com. We will see you next time. Bye-bye.